for those of you who are new here, just a quick background, right? So what do we do today here is we're going through the top 5 reports for this month's challenge. And the main idea is we go through the reports, we talk about them, we discuss them, we tell us our personal opinion about certain things from our experience or what we've seen happening in real life scenarios and so forth. And of course, the most important part about the whole event is we gonna announce who's the actual winner from for the Zoom Charts mini challenge. So that's one important thing. Uh, but before we go into the agenda, talk about a few more things. For those of you who are new here, for those of you who have been here, you probably noticed this, but for those who are new here, we also have a special guest judge here. So, Andres, few words about yourself.
Nice to be here with you. Quickly about me, I work as service manager or delivery responsible in Iberus. It's a consultant company that we work for several clients. And I used to be previously in my life the head of data of a retail company. And actually, I work for many companies, many no companies like Inditex, Burger King, El Corte Inglés, or maybe Bimbo around the world.
Mhm.
I work in many of these projects with Federico. We work in the same team, and we are very keen on looking for new ideas and new projects of Power BI especially.
Awesome. So, you see, guys, right? We invite people because they have some experience, not just because. uh,
No, no, of course not.
of course not. Otherwise,
Andres,
who are we?
uh, he know what he does. Not only on the managerial side, but on board by himself. Okay, you don't know him from LinkedIn. You don't know him from X or any other social media, but he can. He gives me classes. Okay, it's better than me that much. Okay, that's simple. So that's for everybody that we play in LinkedIn that we think we know a lot. We don't know that much. Okay, so there is always more and more to learn. And I learn every day because of the people around me.
Yeah. LinkedIn is for just for you notice those people who are talking all the time, right? There's a lot of people who just don't talk very publicly, but they're doing a lot of things and doing amazing things. So, what else? The agenda. Alexandra, there we go. So for
Oh,
today,
look,
like I said,
Rigoberto.
there we
Hey,
go.
we were talking about Rigoberto. He's there.
Order has been restored. We're good.
Yep, we're back. We can continue.
Exactly. So yeah, for today's webinar, the way we go through things is we're going to go through the top 5. Of course, the top 5 itself is going to be randomized. Otherwise, kind of weird, and you already would know who's the winner. So the random order is one of the most important things. We're going to go through each of the reports. We're going to talk about, like I said, certain things that we like about the reports, which we think were done very amazingly. Certain things that we think could have been done differently, right? It might be also the case where I like something, but Federico doesn't like it, or vice versa. Federico likes something, I don't like it. It's fine. It's how things happen also in real life, right? You have to be able to also take a little bit of constructive criticism. Your report is your work. Don't get too attached to your work. That's one thing, right? The reports are going to change, requirements are going to change. So just listen to that feedback. And after we go through the top 5, we're going to be announcing the winner. And of course, also after that, we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A session. Depending on how much time we, of course, have, we're going to try to answer all of the questions. But if we're not able to, don't forget that you can also reach out to us. You can post your questions also in the FP20 Analytics community. That's one of the places where you can ask questions. The other one is if it's something specifically about our visuals, if you want a consultation or something, you can also write to webinars@zoomcharts.com. So there are different ways on how you can reach out to us to get answers to questions, basically. Yeah, very quick run through. I think really without much further ado, are you guys
We
ready?
got
Should we start?
Mario
Go ahead.
Eugenia. We have, yeah, go ahead. Beach. We have Crystal from my team.
There we go.
Somebody from Brazil. Your name doesn't appear.
Welcome, Anonymous. Let's hope
Yes.
he doesn't hack us, right? All right,
Switch off the
sharing my
electricity or
screen, making
something.
sure everything's good. There we go. All right, so for this month's challenge, the first report that has gotten itself into the top 5 comes from Onkar Bishe. So congratulations, Onkar, in getting into the top five. Now let's open up the report and see what we can do with it. What's good, what's bad. So first of all, whenever you open up the report, one thing that I can straight away comment you on and say thank you for that, the report just feels clean, right? It doesn't feel messy. It doesn't feel like there's hundreds of different elements popping up in different segments. You have clearly defined that the timeline is the primary visual that you want to focus us, or main derivative, right? That drives the conversation. Everything else is here to support that. So you have your KPIs, you have the warehouse utilization capacity, you have utilized also the field parameters. So you allow the visual to basically switch between different metrics. You also have it here for the donut chart, which I really like. I've also always been a fan of this, right? You guys already have heard me tell this before, but just a little touch that whenever I apply a filter, for example, I select stock condition while stock, then I apply it, it tells me how many filters have been applied, right? These little details just allow me to understand and allow the new user to understand what's really happening here. The dynamic filter titles and everything. Like I really love the touches to details in this report. However, right, with with sort of great, let's say, customization comes great responsibility, and that is that I love the capability that what Microsoft gave us with the possibility of applying all slicers simultaneously, which is great when you have massive queries at the back end because it allows you to just request one time rather than just keep requesting dynamically. But the one thing you have to be cautious about is this also allows you to create selections which result in no data whatsoever, right? So you always have to kind of pick which one is better. What I mean by this is something like this, right? I choose, for example, stock out of risk, and I select medium stock level. I hit apply. I go to the report, and suddenly there's no data, right? This is one of the pitfalls that might come across if you're utilizing the apply filters and clear all slicers. That functionality by itself, it's just something you have to figure out, which is basically what you want to do, right? Whether you want to do this dynamically, whether you want to do it with this approach. This approach definitely is better, like I said, with bigger data sets, because with bigger data sets, the main issue is performance, right? Every slightest touch passes out a new filter. You have to request a new query. The data has to come in. It has to be visualized. So there's a lot of things happening. With this one, you create one, you showcase the data, and you just keep analyzing it. Other than that, again, the same thing as for the report itself. The filter panel, I think, is very clean, right? It has consistency across the board. If you have selections, those look like buttons. If you have text, that's all good. The one thing I forgot to check, yeah, the one only thing that I would probably adjust here is for these drop down menus, make sure you also add the search function. If there's three or four options, that's fine. As soon as there's something that requires me to scroll, just add a search, right? It's not going to hurt anyone, but it helps me that if I want to look for something specific, I can do it straight away. For example, supplier ID, right? See, there's a lot of them. So just a small little note. Other than that, like I said, I love the cleanness of this report. Now, what else? Um, One thing I noticed when I started to play around with these two visuals, right? Because I was trying to understand how everything works together and everything. What I liked about this approach, what you did here, is actually you're utilizing the same two values. So you're looking at discontinued products and the total number of available products in a specific category. And you're utilizing the legend of the donut chart as also a legend for the combo, right? Because there's no need for two of the same things, it would be just extra elements. But one thing that unfortunately you have missed is if I hover over in the tooltip, I can still see the original column names. And if I would be a new user, I don't know what switch is. What is the switch you're talking about? Right? So remember that in the tooltip, you always have to double check and make sure that you're showcasing values and names of the series that make sense. I know it's difficult, especially since you're allowing the user to basically switch between different values, but there has to be some sort of a better definition as just a switch, right? I know it's tricky, I understand it, but it's just something I noticed. Other than that, like I said, I like that you utilize just a single legend for both charts because it uses the same principle. The blue bar is going to be the discontinued number of products, whereas the gray is the total number of products for this particular category, basically. So that's really good. If we go to other pages, inventory on geographical analysis, again, utilizing field parameters to switch between the values, that's all good. Having the shapes, perfecto. What else? For this one, I like it. Like, this isn't really your fault. I'd say this is something that we have to fix or figure out a better way. But it's that even though you conditionally formatted them out, the user can still, for example, select the shapes in the background, which have, again, no data. But I'm not going to take away points for that because, well, that's on our side. We have to figure this out. But it's just something that, you notice when you're playing around with this. If we go also to the product page and the stock, here you can see again the same principle, right? So you utilize what, like I said, what I really like about this is that you're utilizing the same color principle everywhere. You're focusing on the highlights if you want to get, and yeah, I really love it. Andres, any comments for this report?
I really appreciate this Power BI dashboard. It's really clean and really clear. But in my opinion, I'm working for many clients. I said sometimes a little plain into the colors. I might use something to highlight the main points of the difference, and maybe in the main KPIs, some
Hmm.
comparison with previous year or previous days or previous period to be able to understand the evolution of the stock. Of course, you have a graphic with the over the time with the stock over the time, but you don't have it in clear numbers to a responsible of the area.
Hmm.
But
Anything
it's
else for geographical analysis?
about this part. I love maps, so in this case, for me, the map it's really nice. And for example, here at the right panel, I I rather use or consider something different to split the different categories because everything in the same color makes some confusion for new users.
Hmm.
But it's just my opinion to use it deeply.
Okay, what about this one? Anything?
This one, I love it, but for example, in the right panel, why are not done uh, for the
No, this
project
one.
based distribution by category? Why categories are not sorted by higher to lower or lower to higher?
Hmm.
They are quite mixed because they are in an alphabetic order.
Alphabetical order, yes.
Yeah, it's little things that make a difference using it.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments?
Yes.
Go ahead,
Quick
Felipe.
one. One thing, well, one thing that I have noticed, Andrea doesn't like blue colors. I know because he told me recently, okay, too much blue. Okay, so open the filter.
Yep.
Now now I'm filtering and I cannot see what is going on. Okay, fantastic. It looks fantastic, the pop-up, but I don't know what is going on behind, and I don't like that personally. Do I need all these filters? Do I need to filter by everything in the data set? Okay, we think about that. Do I need to use all the filters? No. Which filter do I want to use? Maybe two or three are sufficient. Okay, and we speak about this every time. Okay, eh, how these filters interact with the other objects or visual in the panel. When I click here, what happened? When I click here, what happened? Okay, apart from that, it's actually a kind of report, the cleaning list, the color palette, the layout, okay, the gap between objects. It's quite clean. I actually love it. It just actually how from here do I take it to another level? By excellent work, Onka. Excellent work.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Definitely. Congratulations on your work and for getting into the top five. All right, let's go to the next one. So the next one has gotten itself into the top five, comes from Zula. Congratulations, Zula, in getting into the top five. Let's open up the report and take a closer look at it. Federico, you want to take
Yeah,
the first hit
sure.
at it? Yep.
Sulai is now, like we say in Spain, that when you are everywhere or every time in the final, you are in the soup all the time. Yes. Okay. And she's back with another fantastic report. Okay. And I think she won the last one or the previous one, and she was also a finalist in my report. And nice color palette, very nice KPI cards. I most probably don't use the line chart. I know that line chart in the KPI card. I prefer to use the card with some variations or comparisons better than the line chart because I understand that by month, most probably yes.
Hmm.
But you're not telling me I have to point there to know that February is not Tuesday, okay, or it's not something different. And I don't know why, but oh, she told me in her report the table is not visible. Because the table is not visible again, and she had put flags all over the column. Yes,
Hmm.
too many, too many. You need to remember that is my main value. That is my previous year. That is the comparison. That comparison is the one with the flag. Okay, that is the one you want to flag. Okay, the other are values, the comparison, carry the flag or the tick or whatever you want to put. Too many is distracting.
Hmm.
Okay, try to avoid if possible too much coming from the report. Okay, and color palette fantastic. We go to second page.
Yep.
She decided to play with images. That is okay. It's okay, but I think that space can be utilized with something better than just a few numbers and an image. And but that is my personal view. And then we have, you see, you have some errors in here in the table. Now it's okay.
Hmm.
I'm happy because I think she tried to interact and play with the use boxes and the triangles and all the flags and give us an indication what are they about it. But in my view, it's too much uh, info in a visual. Let's go to the map. And again, on the left, she didn't know what to do. I'm going to put a flag in there. I'm going to use that massive, lovely real estate space in just a car with a flag. Okay? I don't know if she could have gone away, maybe doing the map bigger, using all the space in this left part of the report and make that map a lot bigger and clearer. And that's it. She did. Okay. Can you click on the filters?
Yep. Of course.
I'm seeing too many pop-ups. Guys, if you carry on doing pop-ups, I will not be your friend. Okay? One, because you say they are filters. Okay? I understand me, because I do this every month, that there might be some filter there. But for the user, it's difficult. There is a thing called in UI invisible objects. Okay? They are the buttons, the tooltips. You don't see them, you don't know what they do. You have to give me some more clues to me for me to know, okay, what they do. Okay? Remember, your client doesn't know as much as you do about Power BI. Okay, and apart from that, it's like she knows I'm a fan, and we actually talk very much on LinkedIn. And well done and congratulations again for being on the top five.
Absolutely. Uh, from my side, few things is, and we've also discussed this many times. Federico already mentioned the lines, and one more thing that I want to point out regarding the lines is always, guys, be careful on how they cross interact with other charts. Right? That's one of the things, because you want to make sure that if I select something here, it vice versa filters out things here. If I select something here, that I have enough data going backwards and so forth. So just pay attention to these details. Here, it seems like most of the time it's fine. The only other issue I think I was able to replicate is, for example, yeah, this is how you can the user get stuck. So, for example, I selected the value here, and then I have the timeline. On the timeline, I'm trying to zoom out to clear the filters, but the selection is actually coming from here. So the user can easily get lost. Sure, we get the reset button for that, but you try to avoid as many options as possible where the user can get confused. The second thing is I like this feature itself, right? When you compare month over month values straight on top of the visual, which is fine. But the issue with this is that if you have too many data points, I think you guys can see this as well as good as me, right? It just kind of disappears and it feels like a little bit of noise or something doesn't work quite properly there because there's just too many elements being displayed at the same time. So what I would have probably done is have some sort of a year slicer or possibility to just define the starting year and that way focus on just a single year when I first start off. Like for example, if I select 2014 or something like that or 2023, it doesn't matter. So just to focus on this, because that point it would be zoomed in like this, and I would be able to see the values, and it adds a lot more value to me as a user. So that's one of the things. The table, totally agree, especially in this scenario where the flags don't really. It feels like they don't mean anything, right? It's just to grab your attention, but it's
Yeah.
not adding any additional value. Um, on the status page, I kind of like the idea, right, that you're utilizing the space, but be very cautious about the images that you're using. One thing that you have to remember every single time you do utilize an image is a resource that has to be loaded every single time it's requested, especially if it's not embedded into the report but it's coming from external resources. It means it has to create a connection, it has to download the image, it has to display the visual. If you have a slower connection, things might not properly render, somebody might have a half an image or something like that. So just think about when you're adding images, not to create or use images that are very high resolution. It requires a lot of performance and network connectivity to make sure it utilizes it properly. What else? The table I actually kind of really like. It's very simple, but it allows me to focus on the two main properties, right? I want to understand whether it's in stock or if it's out of stock, and whether we have a sufficient stack or we're completely running out of it, right? So it allows me to kind of focus on those four main groups in different combinations. This one I really like. As for the countries or the geographical analysis, the main issue I see with this one, right? I don't really have anything against as a principle, but main issue is the background color, and because of the color of the countries that are in the data set, like for example Australia, you can see it kind of blends in too perfectly. And especially if you have other countries, like for example,
Yeah.
if you go for other countries which also have white in their flag, right? Like for example,
Yeah.
you know that Poland is white and red, but at the same time, it just seems like there's a red bar or something like that. So make sure that you have a little bit of a background or something that allows you to emphasize on the whole flag itself, right? Whether you add a background or something, just make sure that it doesn't blend in completely with the background color. I'm not gonna take any offense, right? But trust me, people who are coming from those countries, they might very easily take offense to these situations. You have to be very cautious about things like these.
A couple of Polish guys knocking at your door.
Oh, they're gone. Trust me, they're no longer in the chat. So that's one thing. The same goes for the map itself as well. Here, uh, I would never really use just a white fill color. I understand it kind of fits in with the color palette overall, but the main issue I have with this one is as soon as I zoom in, and if it's fully non-transparent and if it's white, it kind of gives a feeling that something is not rendering there in the middle, right? Like there's just like a dark hole that swallowed everything. So the centers I would probably utilize as, I don't know, gray or something like that, something that's neutral but still feels like it's a fill color, right? White usually feels that it's empty, but that might just be me. That so other than that, the control for different drill down levels, that's all fine. I like that also you, for the total countries, you actually, for these cards that are separated. So you're highlighting individual points for those countries. That's all good. For filters, the only other issue that I had is when I select something, what I usually expect, if I have a sort of a menu that pops out, I'm okay with those. But I also expect to have a clear all slicers in that sort of floating menu. Because otherwise, if I apply something here, I have two options. Either I go ahead and clear everything by hand, which is not great, or I have to close it, then go back here, or if I have it open and I apply the filters, right? So let's say the same 2024, but then I click reset, so that suddenly closes. No, just the small little thing. It's not that it's unfixable. It's very easily fixable, but it's just small little things that take a lot of attention or just make you kind of jump around the report the whole time. Other than that, I think it's a good report. Congratulations in getting into the top five. Andres, any comments from your side? Anything that you noticed that you want to kind of emphasize on?
Yes, only little things here in the pop-up when you are over the table.
Hmm.
I over the table, the in the middle.
Oh, this one, the
Yeah,
tooltip. Yeah. Hmm.
I really appreciate the this little table with the flags of the countries, and yes, it should be used more in the other pages. For example, in the country one,
Hmm.
and about the images that Federico doesn't love it. I really enjoy using them in the reports. We have many discussions about this. But for example, if you go to the country page,
Yep.
here I might appreciate if instead of having a drop down menu, you might have the flags to select the country.
Oh yeah,
It's
chiclet slicer. Yeah, that would work.
it's really useful for people, and it's really clear. And one more comment that is really useful is in the top KPIs that are fixed,
Hmm.
maybe have some conditional format to have the flag of the country in the background, because it helps you to identify quickly. And I love the slicers and the way that the filters are hidden and accessible in the filters.
Hmm.
So for me, it's a nice report with little details, but really nice report.
There you go. All right, let's go for the next one. So the next submission that has gotten into the top five comes from Verzi John Diaz. Congratulations in getting into the top five. For this one, I'll give the floor to Federico and Andres, but I think Federico just disappeared.
Federico
Federico,
is off. He
he's
had
gone.
some connection issues. He's written me from the
Oh,
mobile phone.
okay, it's all good. Yeah, so we'll give the floor to Federico afterwards. Andres, you want to give your comments on this one?
Yes. Here in this case, I love the top KPIs because they have comparisons with previous year. They have color different colors depending on the value.
Hmm.
Maybe the mini graph, I will need an axis for this, or maybe change it to a chart one to have, or having different bars to identify that are maybe 12 months or which represent the axis is the main point about the distribution of different labels and elements. I love it, but maybe here the images in the product details by KPI,
Hmm.
the little images are not really clear with this background color. But for me, this is a quite useful page. And can we see the geographic insights to
Of
discuss
course.
about it? Yeah, I I really appreciate the idea, but maybe the map is not as clear as possible. So, but the page is quite interesting. Only taking into consideration the little axis on the mini graphs
Hmm.
that gives you some idea, but not the whole meaning, and the elements on the map are not quite easy to see. About product search, can you go there?
Hmm.
If you tell and you call it product search, I expect uh, as an element to search about a specific KPI for a specific SKU, but not with the selection. I would like to type it.
Yeah,
That are my main comments. So it's a really nice report, and the little things per se, I think, can be changed in quite little time.
absolutely. Like I said, right? A lot of these things that we mentioned, it's not like it takes years to fix or anything like that. Those are quick fixes, but those are just things we notice from our experience, and that's the main thing. Welcome back, Federico. Yeah, Federico. Any comments for this report? I think Federico disconnected again.
Federico is frozen.
Yeah. Welcome to live session, people. Right? As much as we would love to make sure that everything is working flawlessly, it's what it is. Right? All right. From my side, so for this report, few things that I love about it. Right. The one thing that I love about it is that there is actually a light and dark theme. I like these switches between two different options to make sure that based on, for example, the environment or the sort of daytime that I'm looking at it, I can switch between the two. And also personal preference, I like the dark reports. Other people like light reports. So give them both options so they can enjoy whatever they feel like. So that's one of my kudos. The other thing, whenever we're going into sort of two different modes, one thing that I would recommend or just say that pay attention to these guys is don't forget or neglect the wallpaper colors, because by default every single report has white wallpaper on the sides, right? These sides that you see right here, you can change this color. So in the same manner as you're switching between the two different pages, you can also switch the wallpaper color just to feel that it fits in a bit nicely. Because if I'm using a dark theme, most likely I don't really want to have sides which are completely white to just shine in my eyes, right? If it's a dark theme, it's a dark theme. So that's one thing. The other thing, if you go to the geographical analysis, the one thing that I noticed about this is, like Andres already mentioned, right? The numbers, they just feel a little bit too small. So the detail level, I would want to have the ability to just at least enhance them and see them a little bit better. But the map is fixed. I understand why it's done, because essentially this is an image at the background and the map visual is on top of it and it's fully transparent and you don't want it to skew the view. But at the same time, you're kind of fixing me in a position where I cannot see more details even if I wanted to. And that's not something you want the user to be kind of left with, right? You want them to be able to play around and explore the visuals. Other than that, I kind of like the idea of separate, so for example, product categories to be highlighted in separate KPIs that allows me to focus on them. I can switch between the different months, see how it changed over time, and so forth. So that's all fine. The one other thing that kind of breaks the view for me is if I select the 1 month, well, then the line is kind of just a random marker. So this is one of the reasons why you got to make sure that those cross chart interactions, remember, which I mentioned in the previous report, where if I selected it, all filtered was all fine. In this case, if you have an option to just select a single month, or that's the main sort of prompt that you're giving to the user, make sure that you disconnect the cross chart filtering for the lines itself. So I would say basically leave the line chart as a reference to an overall situation, whereas the KPIs is something that adjusts based on the necessity. Field parameters are being used for different values. That's good. Allows the user to switch between different views without the necessity of creating a completely new page. I'm using what I already have, just switching the values, right? So that's all good. Exactly the same feedback as from Andres. If I go to a page which is called product search, I want to search. That was the first thing that I was just basically go here, search. Where's the search? If it would be just called product, I wouldn't have any issues. But because there's that word product search, I was looking for a search. So yeah, that's one of the things. What else? Purely from a design perspective, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of these toggles, the visual aspect of it, because it kind of tells me to enable it or disable it. For me, if I'm a new user, I think if you have it here on the slicer menu, then you have it, for example, also in some other visuals, and then suddenly at this one, it feels a bit too overwhelming. There's too many things that I can do simultaneously, and I just don't know what to focus on. So maybe just have a basic checkbox which people are used to and know how to essentially read, right? It's not necessarily that it's bad. I'm just not a fan of those. Other than that, the drill down is there, which is good. What you also need to be cautious about is selection again. So, for example, if I select a single year, you can see this is working fine. But if I select on a visual, so if I reset the charts, if I select here 1 year, you can see I still have all 3 years here now. It should cross filter each other because what I can do now is select 2023 and it's going to break everything because I have a conflict of filters. One visual is telling me 2025, the other one's telling me 2023. Result, I have no data. So again, it's not a major issue. You can easily fix this with just managing the interactions, but it's just something to pay attention to. The information's overlay is there. That's all fine. What else? Closing this one, going back home. One thing, guys, that I want to emphasize on these starting pages, right? Unless that first page gives you a purpose or you're deriving the user to go to a specific page straight away, right? So, for example, this is the entry point and you're telling him to choose a page where he wants to go to. I would be okay with that. But these starting pages, which add really unnecessary no value, I'd say don't get rid of them. It's just an unnecessary point that takes me to just press get started to actually see what I'm here for, right? Unless it adds a value, don't create those elements. Trust me, end users are also going to appreciate it. If you want to have that sort of a page which explains what the data set is all about, or if you have some definitions or something, create a hidden page which is in the navigation menu. You allow the user to get there, to read the definitions and everything, but it's not something you force them to go through every single time they open up the report. It is an option, but it's not mandatory. Other than that, I think it's a great report. It's simple, but you still has a lot of different functionality. A lot of different things have been done here. So congratulations in getting into the top five. And let's go to the next one. Federico, you back?
I'm back.
Hey,
Like
exactly.
Terminator.
What a
um,
nightmare.
like I said, right? It is a live sessions. As much as we would want to control everything, we can't. It is what it is.
I don't know. It sounds like echo to me.
Uh, those are crazy ones. Any last minute comments before we jump on to the next report for this one, Federico?
Just how much improvement.
Yeah.
I listen in double. Sorry. From his first report to this one, I don't know about the color, but that's personal. Yeah, that is a personal take on color. Okay, and then the changing from light to dark, down here left,
Hmm.
and on the time take too long and everything. I don't think much different. Um, we're having problem with my sound. Carry on, guys. I
No,
have
no
some
worries.
problem with this.
All right, let's go to the next one. So the next report we have in the top five comes from Ugachuku. So congratulations. Let's open it up and take a closer look at it. So for this one from my side, one of the primary things that I noticed and always pay attention to, like I said, is if you have your slicers, I like that it's here because one of the things that I didn't mention in the other reports, but I noticed as well, is if you ever have a year over year comparison or month over month comparison in the cards, unless you have defined a clear entry point, like in this case, you define a specific year, my question is, what are you comparing in year over year? Is it the last year? Is it the average of all the years? Or what am I looking there? Right. So this at least gives me a clear understanding that I'm comparing 2025 year over year. So that's versus against 2024. So how much have I grown? So that part I like about it. I have the ability to also move between the different segments. So you have the timeline right here, and you have it also right here. But again, guys, if you have things also in the cards, make sure that you're not able to come across a situation where you just have one single dot or just one single, because you're basically filtering the same thing from four different points, right? Make sure there's one control that controls the timeline. You can still have it here purely visually, but don't allow the user to basically touch anything and filter out across the whole board. That's one thing. Analyze by, so field parameters, good touch. The one thing that I'll be honest, right? The one thing that I'm missing mostly in this page, and Andres, you can comment on this as well. By looking at the other charts, I have value labels, but this one just doesn't have them. So when I look at it, it's like, but why? Because you want to make sure the experience is exactly the same across the board, right? If you have the labels there, then show them for all the visuals, not just for some mysterious reason exclude one of them. So that's one of the things. If we go to the second page, one of the things that I noticed straight away, and this is usually something I do pay attention to, but I forgot to mention in the previous reports, is if you have any slicers, one thing you have to always remember is you have to choose whether or not these slicers are synchronized between all the pages if you're using the same slicers. And in this case, when especially it's the timeline that you're talking about, I think timeline usually needs to be synchronized. So you're always looking at the same time frame. So in this case, if I select something here and if I go to the second page, you can see the filter is not there anymore. So I have to reselect it, which if it's something that's related to the timeline, I think can cause a lot of confusion on the very first entry, right? I selected 2024 there. Now I think it's 2024, but it's really not. So point of confusion might be there. What else? On this page, the one thing that caused a lot of confusion in my sort of experience was this attention. You're telling me that I have to pay attention, but what do I have to pay attention to? Everything? A single chart, a single KPI? Like at first I thought maybe it's because we have, an exclamation mark here, so I was playing around with different values, trying to come across a situation like this where everything is good, but I still have to pay attention to. So what am I supposed to pay attention to? If you have something like this, have either a tooltip or a report page tooltip that tells you what am I supposed to focus on, right? Tell me or navigate me towards it. Other than that, uh, sorry. Other than that, I think it's a very simple report. It does the job, but there are some bits and pieces that I would definitely improve or focus on. The same as for the charts, maybe create some sort of a highlighting to emphasize on what's important or what are the highest points and so forth. Uh, Andres, from your side, any comments, anything?
From my side, yes, I have two little comments. The first one is about the labels. For me, are very little, and in this element there is no label, but the labels are quite little. So it might be an inconvenience, but it's useful to have it really clear from the first sight. And I really appreciate the analyze by the field parameter. it's really useful to me. Maybe in the health overview page, it's more valuable than in the exploratory and
Hmm.
diagnostic. And if you go to another page, I hope find here something to select about the hierarchies. For example, when about the categories and the product IDs, I expect to be able to filter by category
Yeah.
or to focus in the main numbers of the category. So, despite of this, for me, it's a really nice report, really clear. Maybe some little details with this about the visualization and so on. And for example, if you have more than a warehouse, I would expect to have by warehouse categories and main numbers.
Yeah. Especially if you call the page exploratory and diagnostics, right? You're kind of telling the user that you're going to be able to play around and look into details here where you really don't have a lot of options.
Yes, especially if I will use this page to filter using role level security to be able to distribute the information. But I hope that might be possible to explore the huge numbers and and deal through because you have the information.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the last one. So the last report that has definitely not the least, right? That's how the saying goes. That has gotten into the top five comes from OK Dono Faucet. Congratulations, OK. So let's open up the report and take a closer look at it. So for this one of the things that I noticed straight away, and usually I start to see if it's working properly or not. You essentially have two different slicers for the timeline, and then you have a visual with the timeline, right? So my question is, how quickly can I break this? Because usually when there's two different things controlling the same element or the same dimension, it's usually a way on how I can break it. And in this case, if I, for example, select the year, you can see I changed the cards, but the chart itself is not affected. So I can guarantee you, from an end user perspective, this is going to cause confusion. Because on the vice versa, what I can do is I have a year here, then I choose again a conflicting year of 2023, and I break the report. So whenever you have a dimension, try to keep it as simple as possible, and only one control has any sort of saying on how it goes. Do not try to mix it with multiple elements because this is something that's going to happen. People are going to find a way to break it. And trust me, if you can't break it, give it to somebody else. Usually, people have the amazing power of just breaking everything you create. Doesn't matter how much experience you have with it, they're just gonna find a way to break it. So, and that's what I did as well. Other than that, I kind of feel that even though there is a lot of color, well, not a tremendous amount of color, but there is some accent colors, right? Which is fine. I think it's very clean, right? It has a structure. Elements are not just thrown around the page. You have sort of a navigation on the right here. You have the page navigation on the side, and you have your main area where your charts are. So that's all good. There are cross filtering, and this is sorry. One thing I forgot to mention. This is the one part that I was talking about, right? You're telling 5,000 products, 2% increase versus last month. Is it the last month from 2026, 2025? Is it the average? Because if I go here, I see there is no data in 2026, so there's no increase. If I go to 2025, sorry, there we go, a lot of cross filtering. Then I have to select the last month, which has the data, and you're going to see it's also a different number. So you have to make sure these measures understand the context. And if they don't understand the context, provide a way for the end user to define the context straight away. Going to different pages, very simple, very intuitive in a way. The only thing that I would pay attention to is first of all on the map visual, since you have all the shapes, they can select any shape and again break the whole report, right? Make sure you only showcase the visible ones. And the last thing would from my side would be for these the stacking values. So you can see if I hover over it, you can see that in total we have 37 products, six out of stocks, 31 in stock, but this one tells me 37 are out of stock, right? So and that's because what we're doing is we're utilizing a cumulative number. Andres, any comments from your side?
Yes, I have a little comment. I really appreciate this report. Is I love the idea to spur the year and the month
Hmm.
filter, because many times I want to compare by year, having different month period. Uh, for example, to be able to filter different
Hmm.
seasons. And if you go to the last page, to the order
Yep.
location, I don't understand here why the filters are in different places. It can confuse the user.
Hmm.
And something here about the stock chart, the stock bar diagram.
Hmm.
Here, I think that the black over blue is not really visible. Maybe consider change to white color. That definitely is a report that I might use in an iPad or in a tablet
Yeah.
trying to navigate. But I really don't feel it very comfortable with the filters and some elements to navigate using an iPad, where this kind of report can be very useful. And another another main point, maybe it's applicable for the old for all the reports. When you have bar diagrams with different countries or different months
Hmm.
evolution, I really appreciate a median or an average line to establish the levels and check if we are better or worse than we expected in the levels of stock. Because when you're talking about stock and details orders, of course you will have mm, average levels for the service.
Because you usually want to have at least some sort of a reference, right? Am I doing good, bad,
Yeah.
okay? Where do I at least fall in a ballpark? Sure, it's not a perfect analysis, but it gives me an understanding.
Mm.
All right.
That's the idea. But really nice report with these little details to be more usable in the daily tasks.
Yeah, it's like you said, right? I think this report is very good if you just pay attention to a few details like the size of text and so forth. It could be a very good report that you actually use every day on a tablet, just going through the main things, main categories, and so forth. It's not for super detailed analysis, but for a quick overview of what's happening overall. That's how I see it. Uh, but yeah, so those are going to be the top five reports. I know that Andreas, you mentioned that unfortunately you do have to drop off. You have another meeting, right? So thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. And yeah, I think from the audience as well. Thanks for your honest opinion and about your feedback about these reports. So thank you.
It's been really nice to be here with you today. I really appreciate your invitation, and I'm I'm glad to be the next level of the reports that you are you have in the challenge. So continue with this. It's a really nice work, and we only see here some reports, but there are another ones with really nice work.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for participating and for inviting me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. All right.
Have a nice day.
So
Bye.
let's say bye to Andres. And from us, what else is left, right? Of course, the most important thing, we have to announce the winner, right? So, Alexandra, if you could hide my screen for just a second. Got to make sure I find the right one, right? Before I fail. Okay. Here we go. Let me find the correct one because I also don't want to look like a complete fool and want to make sure that I showcase the right one, right? Quite simple. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Oh, we do have one question. Sure, before with the announcement, let's go ahead. How can I participate in the next challenge? So every single month, what we do is we co-host these challenges, right? Let me share the screen again. And if you go to the ZoomCharts website, let's see, there we go. So if you go to the ZoomCharts website, right here at the top right, you have the challenges. And if it's the FP20 Analytics challenge you want to participate in, it's going to show up right here. This one's going to close because this is the final day for it. So a new one is going to show up right here. And in order to participate, all you have to do is just open up the challenge page itself. You're going to have to sign up. You're going to have a sign up sheet right here at the top right. Right now, since it's closing, you can see I can't really register or anything, but you're going to have a registration page right here where you can also sign up for a developer's account. Developer's account is an account we provide for you so you have access to all of ZoomCharts visuals with all the capabilities and everything. And you can get your license there, get the data set right here as well, and have the brief description about the challenge, everything in this single page. And also, if you do have any more questions regarding this, the participation or anything, feel free to reach out to webinars@zoomcharts.com, and our team is going to be able to support you with more information. Also, for those of you attending, I would highly appreciate if you could spend a minute of your time to fill in the feedback form. So it's in the top left corner for you, I think. So you can just scan the QR code. I think we have like 3 questions there or something like that, just to understand how you like these sessions. Is it something you were expecting? Were they good? Were they bad? Tell us however you feel so we understand whether we're doing a good or bad job with this. And if you want us to change something in the sort of concept, also let us know so that we can adapt to based on your needs, right? The last thing we want to do is just have sessions just because. We want to make sure this adds some sort of a value to the community. So that's the most important part. All right. Anything else, Alexandra? Do we have any other questions? Guess that's it. All right. So if that's it, since my screen is going to be open right here, I'm going to find the right one. But before I do that, quick note on what I was telling about total stack values. So within our visuals, if you go to the value labels, you have this property called use total stack value. By default, this is set on auto, which is true. Now, what this implicates on a visual is you can see right here, if I hover over a column, this part is 955,000. This part says 2.34 million, but in the tooltip, it's 1.38 million. So what this number represents is the cumulative of both of those values. So it's summing up. So what you can do in a visual formatting options is you can say that use total stack value is actually set to false. What this means is that every single value is going to be represented independently. So those are just 2 different ways on how you can look at the values and the numbers. And the other thing I would say pay a bit of attention to is whenever you're using a timeline visual, on the x-axis there's a property called dynamic all data. So what this controls is if it's turned on, what the chart is going to do basically adapt to whatever available to the chart, right? So it's going to zoom in and out based on necessity. If you turn this off, because you can, what's going to happen is, and actually want to make sure, or actually we can keep it like this, yeah. So if I increase the data range, you can see the chart is stuck to basically the view that I had before. So I have to manually zoom out. Now, if I'm on this view where I have a lot of different months and I lower the amount of months visible, it's going to cut off, but there's a lot of white space. So make sure you just pick the one that feels better for your use case. Don't forget about that the Zoom Charts visuals, they have a lot of customization in them. So there's a lot of settings that you have to play around with and see which one fits your use case better. All right, but enough about that. We have to announce the winner, right? So the winner for this month's challenge is, let's drag it right in, Percy John Diaz. Congratulations to you, man, on having the best report in our opinion in this month. Definitely with the highest level of growth we've seen from one month to another. Uh, Funny story, right? So Percy, previous month he wasn't able to get into the top five, so we reached out to us asking if it would be possible to get a a certificate of participation or something like that, and we said him the only way you can get one is by getting into the top five. So that's what he did. He got into the top five and he actually won the challenge, and that's how you do it. Persistence is key. Don't give up. Just because you didn't get into the top five one month doesn't mean you cannot win the challenge the next one, right? So you have the possibility always of winning and becoming the best one in that particular month. So congratulations to you again. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. I hope it was interesting and insightful. So, without further ado, I'll see you in the next challenge, in the next workshop. Thank you, everyone, and have an amazing day. Bye.